Rwanda has decided to leave the Central African Regional Bloc, Eccas, after it was blocked from taking up its turn as chair, a move it sees as unfair and politically driven. Now, at a recent summit, member countries sided with the Democratic Republic of Congo, which accuses Rwanda of supporting the M23 rebel group fueling conflict in eastern DRC. Rwanda says its rights within the bloc were ignored. Now, the DRC, along with countries like the US and France, claims Rwanda has sent troops and backed the rebels, a charge Rwanda denies, insisting that its forces are only securing its borders. But despite this, both countries are working on a peace deal mediated by the US. Still, Rwanda's decision to walk away from the bloc raises a bigger issue. If regional groups cannot stay neutral and resolve disputes fairly, how can they truly bring peace to the region? Well, today I'm joined by Claude Gatebuke, author and Rwandan genocide civil war survivor from Tennessee, US. And we also have Igunzi Mwisimbwa, patient, teacher and youth organizer in Kinshasa, DR Congo. Thank you so much for joining us on the conversation.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. Now, let me begin with you, Igunzi. Igunzi, Rwanda says that its right to chair Eccas was deliberately ignored. Do you see this as a breach of protocol or a deeper political signal?
Thank you. Thinking about Rwanda's withdrawal, and I think it is a kind of they are really responsible of the accusations, and I think politically speaking, they are responsible, and for them, it's a kind of self-remembering their responsibility, and it's a shame for them, and they really need to have those kinds of decision, and they should really be responsible. They should undergo other decisions. So politically speaking, you know that Rwanda and Congo and DRC, they're engaging in discussions, though our government is also responsible of many decisions that they took and not involving the people, the Congolese population. So Rwanda really has to bear in mind that the number of decisions and involvements and actions they have been making in Eastern Congo will have future consequences. And what is happening in Central Africa now is one of the Pan-African actions we have been proposing, and in the future we need to sensitize. We need to have true Pan-African leaders, because Pan-Africanism is the resolution, and we need to have true Pan-African leaders, and not just those who are gathering in the African Union, but those who are aware of the needs and the history. They also know the historical background of leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, Sékou Touré, and all true Pan-African leaders who were involved who were gathering for the collective issue and interest of the African people. So leaders in Africa should be aware of it. They should rely on the decisions of the historical background, the decision that leaders like Kwame Nkrumah and all these African Union creators, these people who had the true vision. So Rwanda is responsible and should be just waiting for other decision when African leaders work in solidarity. So Rwanda should be responsible, and they should pay all these actions they've been doing, which are not for the people, and so they were being discussing. They were not taking into account the Pan-African values and roots. So they should be
okay. So when you say paying for some of the things that they've done, you're talking about allegedly siding with the M23 rebels, even though they denied it.
Okay, it's true that they will never officially on the social media. They will never accept that they support the rebels, but we know there are proofs, there are evidences, and me, I'm here in Kinshasa, but I was born in Bukavu and Goma. We know the situation, how they use their evidences. You can see some soldiers, some captured M23 soldiers who are reporting that they have been forced by the Rwandan government to join the movement, but they were just innocent. Some of them are prisoners and they are forced to join this struggle. So this capitalist and imperialist struggle who are just there for domination, exploitation,
okay,
and abuse of.
All right, now let's hear from Claude. Claude, let's hear your thoughts. Let's have your thoughts. If you agree with Igunzi, Rwanda saying that its right to chair the Eccas was deliberately ignored.
Yeah, so I think I do agree with him because it's not just about being ignored. I think it's important, and one of the things that needs to happen is that Africans need to start holding Africans accountable for the lives of our people. And Rwanda has been destabilizing the Congo for a long time, and it's about time that an African body has actually taken a decision and a step to hold them accountable. The issue that we've had for a long time is that in Africa at this point in time, it's so littered, especially the Central East African part of the and East African part of the continent. They are littered with dictators who are just patting each other on the back and causing destruction to the people. And so, as it is, Rwanda, with all of the atrocities, I know you said alleged. I'm here to say, without a shadow of a doubt, that Rwanda has invaded the Congo not only once but multiple times, and today is occupying the Congo, parts of Eastern Congo, through the M23 rebel group, which is a proxy Rwandan military group. Also, there is overwhelming evidence. There is thousands of troops, more than 5,000 troops Rwandan troops in the Congo, occupying the Congo, and violating another country's sovereignty should be taken very seriously. And I think it's been a major failure on the African Union's part, any of the regional bodies' part, and a lot of African countries' part, not to hold accountable Rwanda for those type of atrocities. When there was apartheid in South Africa, South Africa was isolated politically. They were isolated, and of course, initially, similar to Rwanda, they were supported by Western imperial powers, the European Union, the US, the UK, France, and so many others are locked in with Paul Kagame and the Rwandan government. Now, it was the same with apartheid. And the anti-apartheid movement, what it brought was it started unifying the world around isolating South Africa, that to the extent that even in terms of sports, South African teams could not compete in international tournaments. So Rwanda should not be chairing any international bodies because they're going to use them to legitimize themselves and to use them as a platform to deny the crimes that they're committing and have committed against millions of Congolese since 1996. We have seen mass rapes, hundreds of thousands of people being burnt alive, just all kinds of horrible atrocities. It is a genocide happening in the Congo, and the responsible party cannot be complaining about not being given the leadership positions, because all they're going to do with using, anytime you give a criminal resources, they commit more crime. And war criminals commit more war crimes when they get resources.
Okay. Now, let's hear from Igunzi. Igunzi, for a bloc, founded in 1983 to promote cooperation, what really, we understand that, the DRC has a thing or two against Rwanda, but what really does Rwanda's exit signal? Does it signal a broken system or a shake-up time?
Yeah, thank you. Thinking about the rebel movement, M23, we are having, so we can see the presence of President Kabila, who is not allowed to come here in Kinshasa, for example, but he can easily travel to Rwanda and Uganda, for example, and there is free access to the Rwanda. So thanks to through the borders, you can easily cross the Ruzizi borders. You go to Kigali and Kamembe and Gisenyi. But this is not the case, for example, in South Kivu province, in Uvira territory and Uvira town. So when you want to cross Burundi, you should have official and legal documents like the passport and the so-called CPGL, so for the Greater Lake region. So, but there is a kind of free and collaboration between the administration imposed by the rebels and Rwanda. So you can hear from some folks on the ground saying that people in Rwanda, the officers, officials are saying that we are the same people. So for them, the Paul Kagame regime wants to have the control of the administration, the lands, and they're using these rebels and AFC and M23 movement. And there should be more details on the difference between AFC and M23 movement, which has started earlier from the 2009 agreement, but the FC, which has been there for nearly 2 years. So officially, Corneille Nangaa, who was the chief and the president of the Electoral Commission here, has been joined to the movement just to utilize him, to use him like the way they used Laurent Kabila, Congolese who were there just being used like a puppet, but behind him you could see James Kabarebe, who was the chief staff of the Congolese army. At the same time, he was the chief staff of the Rwandan army. You can see these things, and that's why you can hear the International Criminal Courts sanctions him, because they know how the system, and they want to have some kind of compensation from the Congolese government. And so for them, the Congolese government should pay Rwanda, so it should let Rwanda control the eastern part of the country, because Rwanda has helped the rebels, the Kabila, Laurent Kabila movement to take power. So from these evidences, it is true to make proofs and the signals also denying these things, and for them withdrawing, exiting these areas, there should be some so-called mineral or peace deal. We can hear, we are waiting for their meeting in USA again. So our government and Rwanda, so they are planning to meet again, and all these things always happen. So the result is always the agreements, and the people do not know the content of these agreements. That's how they use. So they create just terms to let the people to make us sleep. But we know how Rwanda supports. Where does the military support come from, if not from Rwanda and Uganda? So it is. There are more evidences, and it's true that when they met in Qatar, you could say how Rwanda was denying, but finally they met with our president in Qatar, and then after meeting, you could see some withdrawal of the rebels in some regions, because there is a so-called peace deal, and all these deals bring us to infiltration of the army and control of our system, whether the administration, whether they're at all levels, they want to have the control of DRC. But for them, if you are,
all right. Well, I heard you when you said, when the meeting in Qatar started, there were lots of rebels pulling back. Now, let's hear from you, Claude. Claude, considering that Rwanda previously left Eccas in 2007 and then rejoined in 2016, what do you think? Are we witnessing a permanent exit, or is it another strategic repositioning?
This is not unusual behavior by the Rwandan regime. In fact, if I can just quickly make a quick comment to your last question about unity, you cannot massacre your way and spill so much blood and rape so many people into unity. There is no way there will be unity between someone who is taking millions of lives and displacing millions of people and having that person be united. I mean, I do see it with, leaders, but that does not represent unity, especially doesn't represent the people. And so that's one thing. Second is in terms of Rwanda exiting and going back and exiting and going back. This is a tactic that Rwanda uses all the time. It's a type of blackmail that Rwanda has used very successfully, especially with the UN, for example. When the UN mapping exercise report came out in 2010 that talked about the crimes committed in the Congo and said that if taken to court, that Rwandan troops would be seen or would be guilty of genocide. Rwanda threatened to remove their troops from peacekeeping missions that they are a part of in various parts of the world. And then the UN just put that report in the cabinets, and it's collecting dust instead of being used, and its recommendations being used as a way to bring about accountability, justice, and lasting peace in the region. And so this is a tried and true method of delay and also avoiding and evading responsibility. And they're obviously upset at the fact that more and more of the international bodies and even their colleagues are recognizing that you can no longer hide the atrocities Rwanda is committing in the Congo. And it's a big shame, even to people who have very little shame, that those atrocities are happening in Congo. So this is a method to just create negotiating power. It's a method to create leverage with the body. And at the end of the day, also, maybe they don't see a lot of interest in it. This is an African regional body. Most of the resources, the money, the weapons, the economic support, diplomatic support, political support that Rwanda gets, they get it from their Western, Kagame's allies. Western puppet masters, who are, who set the agenda. So this is not a body that they necessarily feel like it gives them any amount of leverage. If this was done by, look, the U.S. sanctioned the #2 person in Rwanda, General James Kabarebe, who's been implicated in the crimes in the Congo for the last 30 years, since 1996. Rwanda didn't pull out their diplomats out of the U.S. Multiple European countries, including the UK, they all have threatened to sanction Rwanda, or maybe have sanctioned. And guess what? Rwanda's diplomats are still there. Rwanda is still maintaining relations with them. So this is maybe a place where they think they don't need to be, they don't need it, they don't need to be there, and it doesn't give them a lot of leverage. But in places where these are their masters, they are staying. So just
okay. Now, can you speak to us? Also speak to us about something that Igunzi, mentioned earlier about, the peace deal, because we know that despite this role, Kigali and Kinshasa are working on a U.S.-mediated peace deal set to be signed this month. How will this progress? How will this progress despite the chill in Eccas? And we know that the U.S. hopes to unlock billions, especially in Western investment in mineral-rich regions, as part of the deal as well.
This isn't going to stop it. Number one, when it comes to these type of negotiations, this isn't the first one. This is a copy-paste of previous peace deals and peace negotiations that have happened between Rwanda. And remember, Rwanda keeps denying that it's in the Congo. Paul Kagame says he's not his troops are not in Congo, and sometimes he says that he doesn't know if his troops are in Congo. But the point is, Rwanda is negotiating a peace deal in a conflict that they say that they're not taking part in. So that's number one. So they are going to continue to go, because the pressure that comes from the Western and also Eastern, like Qatar, that kind of pressure, which puts a lot of economic pressure on Rwanda. And Rwanda sells itself as one of the fastest growing economies on the continent of Africa. When those things start to crumble, they will oblige. So I've seen Rwanda walk away from many, including the one in Rwanda. They were ready to sign. Paul Kagame refused to go and sign. Even in this one, he seems to be trying to find ways to delay signing this peace deal that the U.S. is brokering. Again, it's no different than all the past peace deals. The other part of it is that's not going to stop necessarily Rwanda from re-invading the Congo, because they've done this. They use these times when there is no fighting to regroup and to rearm and to strategize, and then go and take over again, and then start a new round of negotiations. So they will continue as long as it's the U.S. that's putting pressure, as long as it's a donor that's putting pressure, and countries that have so much of that hold so much of Rwanda's economy, including both, the U.S. and obviously Qatar.
All right, now let's quickly hear from Igunzi just before we wrap up. We'd love to hear your final thoughts. And also, if Eccas cannot manage neutral conflict resolution, because I know there's some powers that are happy that Africa is not uniting, as they should be. What alternatives do you think can bring regional cooperation back on track?
Yeah, thank you. One of the alternatives, I think, for the Congolese government, which is not able to control the whole the country, the territory, good cooperation and true African negotiations, like, the organization like the Central African countries organization community. It is interesting. So the resolution of the conflict should be both internal and external, not just neglecting the local forces like the Wazalendo, who are these compatriots, local and owners of the land. So the government should think of these these actions that the resistance are doing, because the conflict has not started today. We grew up in these conflicts. We know how the government always sign some contracts, and the integration of the rebel movement in the army is one of the negative aspects of these agreements. But the resolution should also take into account some inclusive and national dialogue and inviting all these people together. So all these meetings have proposed some inclusive and dialogue about the government is not favoring this, is not promoting this idea of making some leaders just sitting at the same table discussing. But the problem is the violent aspects of the conflict. So our army should think about the structuring and organizing of our armed forces, because the infiltration is very high. And there is another problem of Joseph Kabila, who knows the army, the Congolese army, and now he has been removed. He's withdrawn his immunity. So the conflict is very high, and so they should think of all these local and external aspects. So uniting, okay, counting on these communities, and why not the African Union? So that's what we may suggest.
Oh, all right. Now, what we're going to do now, gentlemen, is we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll definitely continue this talk. Please stay with us. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. So we're still discussing Rwanda's exit from the regional bloc Eccas. We still have Claude and Igunzi with us. Now let's come back to you, Claude. You know, if Eccas, we talked about Igunzi, about how, you know, they could actually manage, if they cannot manage the conflict resolution and all that, what alternatives can the bloc bring, you know, on track? Now, Eccas was formed in 2000 to include, you know, military mechanisms, to include military mechanisms like the COPAX. Now, would you say that it is failing in its core mission of peace and security, considering, you know, the regional, that's the insecurity, regional insecurity happening at the moment?
Yes. And in fact, they are failing. And in fact, most African regional bodies and also the African Union have failed the Congolese people throughout these last 30 years. The only one that's taken a stance and has at times been very helpful is SADC, the Southern African Development Community. The East African Community failed. They came and they caused even more deaths of Congolese people, allowed more invasion, and now Eccas has been standing by, which is a failure, as the violence has raged on in the Congo. So it has been a failed mission because at the end of the day, it's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to serve the people. The issue here is that it has not served the people. What has happened is that it's turned out to be one more of the many regional bodies similar to the African Union, where it's basically a gathering of the African elite, in essence, protecting each other and protecting each other from being held accountable for what is happening. Because the whole central issue to what is happening today, the reason why Rwanda is not, is exiting Eccas is simple, is because of what it's doing in the Congo. And as a result of it, there's objections to Rwanda being having the chairmanship, and Rwanda is saying, okay, if you don't give us the chairmanship, we're leaving. Now, the standing by has been a failure. If they continue this way, because so many of the countries in that body also have a lot of terrible things happening in those countries, and they actually stand by the people, of those countries. They stand by the massive numbers of ordinary Africans that are affected by leaders and dictators in these countries. That then they will be serving. They will not be failing their mission, even if they don't succeed at uniting the African elites or the leaders who, for the most part, have imposed themselves on the people. Very few of them were actually brought to power through the voice of the people. So it is a failure. It has failed. And the bigger failure is the fact that millions of Congolese lives have been lost at the hands of Rwandan and Ugandan troops, and these regional bodies have remained silent. That's the biggest failure. And so, yes, it's been a failed mission for the people. And at this point, whether the elites are united or not, it doesn't improve the lives of Africans. And Igunzi, Pasi talked about the Pan-African spirit. Part of Pan-Africanism is that African resources are to serve and better the lives of African people, and this has not happened. And this is because of leaders like Paul Kagame's and the Musevenis and many others, even in power on the continent. And of course, in Eccas, there are many such type of leaders.
Okay, now speaking of them failing, now if regional bodies like Eccas, because even if you come to West Africa, even when you come to West Africa, they have their own issues. You have the likes of 3 countries leaving the bloc, and also Togo threatening to leave ECOWAS. But then, if regional bodies like Eccas cannot arbitrate fairly, what's the alternative for ensuring peace and integration in Central Africa? I've asked Igunzi this question, so let's hear from you, Claude.
I think there is a need to empower the people, because it has been obvious that the leaders are not really interested, and it makes sense because many of them do not have the mandates of the people. So what needs to happen is really a popular movement of ordinary people to push for change, so that leaders who are actually in these countries are leaders that are chosen by the people, who are looking out for the interest of the people. That is the alternative. The others, these regional bodies have really not been helpful in resolving the issues you just talked about, like ECOWAS and the Alliance of Sahel States, where ECOWAS was ready to go and invade some of ECOWAS leaders, like Nigeria's leader and Benin and the Ivory Coast, that they were ready to go and invade, for example, Niger, on behalf of their Western puppet masters. And a lot of these regional bodies, they serve the interest of those who finance them, and a lot of them are financed by
elites or Western
the elites
powers,
and also the Western powers. Yes.
All right.
So it's about the people. It's really about empowering the people. That's the alternative.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think with that, we have to wrap up this conversation. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time and for speaking on this. Claude Gatebuke, author and Rwandan genocide civil war survivor, and Igunzi Mwisimbwa, patient, teacher and youth organizer. We appreciate you for your time.